Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Behind the Reel podcast. We've got a returning guest, Mr. Clayton Westgate. I think he may be on his way to be the most returning guest in Behind the Reel podcast history. I know he's had his own episode here twice, and we've had him on for placing in like a top five or something. So, anyways, we've had him on. A lot of you guys might know him. Some of you may not. We'll meet him tonight. For those of you that maybe aren't acquainted, but if you are fishing in Kansas kayak tournaments, likely you know who Clayton is. You've seen him on the leaderboards, and he's definitely got a hot streak kind of going into the season here, winning the first event of the year with the Kansas Kayak Anglers out at Big Hill Lake, and he won by 7 inches roughly, and so he had a pretty big lead there for that first event. So he's got some momentum coming into this thing. So definitely check him out. You can check him out on YouTube as well. He's been doing the YouTube stuff for quite a long time, much longer than I have. And I know when I got into kayak fishing, he was still Blue Basser 86 back then. So a lot of you guys, a lot of Kansas guys have been watching his videos for a very long time. So yeah, if you don't know, that is Clayton Westgate. You may know him otherwise as Blue Basser 86. So yeah, we're going to get into, this is episode 13, season 2. We're calling it season 2, although I think this is probably more like year 3 of doing the podcast. I don't know. Time just passes by. So appreciate you guys all tuning in over the last few years, months, however long you've been joining. We are definitely growing, and a lot more people are finding out about what we're doing here in Kansas. I want to shout out today's sponsor. That is Grumpy Fish Lures, Grumpy Fish Company. Okay. And you can go over to grumpyfishco.com and get you some lures. They are a sponsor of the Kansas Kayak Anglers. Check this out. They've got a nice little swim jig that I thought I would put on display here. Peanut butter jelly time, as they would say. Looking good. I don't know, not the best camera in the world, which we are looking at. I've made an upgrade. I've made a camera upgrade. I just got to figure out how to make it all work through here. So yeah, maybe next time you can get a better close-up. But if you want an up-close and personal experience with Grumpy Fish Lures, go to grumpyfishco.com. Support the sponsors, support the companies that support the club, that support the local kayak fishing scene. And I want to shout those guys out because they are donating prizes to the club, and they are behind the scenes of the website that we have as well. So they have helped out in more ways than one. So shout out to those guys. We're going to go ahead, kick off tonight's episode. I want to remind you, if you're interested in kind of joining the conversation, if you have questions, put them over there in the live comment section feed. We will be able to see those throughout the episode, and we'll be able to integrate that into our conversation tonight. Do me a favor before we go live here, share this video with a friend, share it in your local Facebook fishing groups, share it with somebody who maybe has a common interest in kayak fishing, and maybe share it with somebody who's struggling on Big Hill because Clayton is getting ready to drop the juice tonight. So we're going to go ahead, bring him on. Appreciate you guys for tuning in, and we're going to get it started. What's up, Clayton?
Not much.
How you doing tonight?
I'm all right. I'm driving all over today.
Doing some rigging you were talking about.
Yeah, getting some new additions put on the kayak, and getting the new trailer that I bought put together, getting it all set up and ready to go.
What'd you go with?
Hopefully I can do one. The trailer I just bought it's a tandem jet ski trailer that I bought off of Facebook Marketplace. So
nice.
Be hopefully not so in the way when I'm launching my kayak in the mornings.
Yeah.
Be a little faster at it now.
Heck yeah. Is that something you picked up with your earnings? Was that something you kind of used as incentive to like, man, I'm going to just go ahead and buy that thing?
I actually had the money set aside. I've been looking for a while now since I got the second kayak.
Sure.
That I could fit them both in the bed of my truck, but it was kind of difficult. So
yeah,
I'd been looking more for a utility type trailer so I could use it for multi-purpose if I needed to. But this that a tandem Sea-Doo trailer popped up on Marketplace, and every one I had seen, every tandem Sea-Doo trailer I had seen was $1,000 or more, and the guy wanted $500 for this one. It was in really good shape, so I couldn't pass it up for that much.
Yeah.
So
that's not a bad deal.
I went and picked that up, and I've put new LED lights on it, and the new wheels and tires showed up for it today. I put new hubs on it, getting it all set up and ready to go.
Heck yeah. There's always something to rig, it seems like. Well, we'll kind of get into the tournament that we're really here to talk about, but definitely interested in hearing about your kayak and maybe about some of the things that you've been adding or looking to add. I know that rigging is kind of a big part of kayak fishing, kind of part of the appeal maybe to it. You know, guys are rigging on bass boats all the time as well, but it's a little bit more affordable to rig out a kayak. So, maybe to hear about some of your favorite accessories and stuff like that. That would be kind of a cool topic to go over. I'm going to put that one down just so we don't forget it. But if you would, maybe take us into, leading up to that Big Hill event, kind of what your thoughts were going into the event, maybe into pre-fishing, and then like how that changed throughout the days leading up to, or the day of the tournament. If you just kind of want to go into that, just curious how all that stuff kind of unfolded, if you had preconceived notions that you had to just completely abandon, or kind of how all that stuff worked out.
Yeah, I definitely had a plan going down there, and I got down there Thursday evening. Our lakes, when I left the house, were just barely getting into the 50s. So I came down. I had like 2 or 3 jerkbait rods, a couple boxes of jerk baits. I had spinner baits, wiggle warts. I was ready to go hard on a pre-spawn bite. And that Thursday night, I got down there, and I'm sure a few people that I'm friends with on Facebook probably saw the pictures. I had made a few casts from the parking lot down on the dam, and I caught a walleye off the dam. And when it got dark, I started walking around with a light, and I could see eyes everywhere on the dam. So I went ahead and launched my kayak instead of doing the responsible thing and going to bed. And I stayed up till midnight trying to catch spawning walleye off the dam, and I'm not a good walleye fisherman, so I didn't catch any. But I did find out that the water was in the low 60s down there, so that kind of got the wheels turning right there. That this lake is a lot further along than our lakes are. I wasn't sure if it was going to be the same way, because I didn't have any intention of fishing, especially when I saw how low the lake was. I didn't have any intention of fishing down there by the dam. I was going to try to fish up in the creek because that's just where I was more comfortable at, and I assumed that's probably where there was going to be more of the bigger largemouth at. And the water was still warm up there too, so that's where I really planned on focusing at. And then once practice started, I still kind of was going to try to do the pre-spawn thing. It's a full moon too, which that the full moon in April usually gets a lot of our fish moving for the spawn, especially when you happen to have water temperatures like they were. You get the right photo period length for the day, full moon, water temperature, everything was perfect to get fish moving to spawn. But I still went out and I wanted to make sure that I was covering my bases. Tried throwing a jerk bait, tried throwing a crankbait. I started with a spinner bait in the morning. I had several bites on a spinner bait. I lost the tail on I was throwing a Kitech Fat Impact style trailer on the back, and I kept getting the tail bit off on it. Like fish were just coming up and nipping at the back of it. Even with a trailer hook, I wasn't getting them. I couldn't get bit on a jig. I couldn't. I wasn't getting bit on a crankbait. So after, really, it was still early in the morning. The voice in my head just kept getting louder and louder. These fish are spawning. These fish are not pre-spawn here still.
Yeah.
So I took my jig off and switched to that Z-Man bang stick, and I put a really, really lightweight little 1/8 ounce tungsten on there, and I just started dragging it really, really slow. I wasn't doing anything with it because the water is pretty dirty up there in that creek, so I wasn't actively going to be able to look for bedding fish or anything. But I had a feeling if I could just drag that across the bottom and pull it through their beds, that I'd get bit. And I don't know, like 2 casts, I got bit on that bang stick, and it was a nice 16 3/4 incher. And probably 10 minutes later, I caught a 17 and a half. So I put that down, kept switching baits. I tried the bladed jig, switched crankbaits. I switched to a different spinner bait. Nothing. I picked the bang stick back up. I caught another fish. And it just seemed like that was the pattern all day. I was trying different stuff. Every time I would switch to something or switch back to the bang stick from something else, I'd get another bite. So I really was pretty set on these fish are spawning, and I wasn't sure, how many fish were up there to be caught. So I didn't want to catch a whole bunch of them. So I really just kind of played around a lot. I went way, way up in the creek, further than I've ever been. I messed around with some spawning white bass that were really hammering a spinnerbait pretty hard. That was fun. They were big white bass, so that was a good time. And then I came back out of the creek and fished back towards the bridge, and it slowed down quite a bit. Even when I was fishing that bang stick, I wasn't getting bit. And that's kind of typical of your full moon days for me anyways. The mornings are really good, and then the afternoons get pretty tough.
Mm-hmm.
But I pulled into one pocket down there close to the bridge, and there was a ton of shad, big shad. And the water was a little bit clearer than everywhere else. It had a kind of a little ledge along the bank, and it dropped just a little bit deeper than everywhere else, it seemed like. And I caught like a 15, and then one of my next casts, I caught one that was like 19 and a half.
Wow.
So I pretty much just decided right then I'm going to start right here. So it wasn't very far. I thought I could go there and start, maybe catch a couple fish, and work further back into the creek from there. So tournament morning, I was just kind of standing around and talking. It's me and Justin Maples and Wes Kinsey, Brian Brooks. We're all standing around, and I know they said something about 90 inches. I've never done I've never done very well on Big Hill except for once in practice when the water was high up in the grass. I really did well. So that really that seemed like a tall task for me. Somebody who knew what they were doing out there a little bit better. Maybe it seemed a little easier, but I didn't know if I'd be able to pull that off. But that was the goal that I had in mind when I heard that, was I need to get to 90 inches if I want to win today.
Right.
So I went straight to that pocket, and Justin went there also, and he was in the same boat as me. It sounded like he didn't know where he was going either. So, and he just didn't know the lake either. So we both just went there, and we just kind of sat there and talked. And he was going to fish the south bank. I was going to fish the north bank of that little pocket. And it was, I don't know if it was the bait I was fishing, the way I was fishing it, but that south bank seemed to have the bigger fish on it. Maybe it was the sunlight, because I guess that would be the bank that would get the most sunlight if they were spawning in there. But I caught my very first cast in the morning. I launched it too far up onto the bank, into a tree, popped it out of the tree, and it hit the water. I thought it got snagged, but it was still kind of dark. As I still started to tighten up on it, I realized it was moving, and I caught a 15 and a half, my very first cast in the morning.
Wow.
And probably 20 minutes later, I caught that first 17 and a quarter. About 5 minutes later, I caught a 17 and 3/4. Fished all the way down, not all the way. It's a pretty small little pocket. Came back out. I switched to a Strike King rodent, Okeechobee crawl rodent, on a little 1/4 ounce weight. Another just lightweight, dragging it really slow along the bottom. And that was when I caught that. I think it was 19 and a half. I caught another smaller one the very next cast after that, and a couple casts later, I caught a 15 and a half. So it was just real fast first thing in the morning. And Justin and I were talking back and forth the whole time, and I felt kind of bad because he's watching all of it go down. Every time he was catching fish fairly consistently, it looked to me like, but every time he'd catch one, it was a 13 or a 14, and then I'd catch one, it was a 17. So I don't know. I guess it was something about the bank I was on that they were liking. And when he did finally hook a good one, he broke it off. He was throwing a spinning rod, and it got him down in the trees and broke off.
Should have known better than that.
I was throwing a spinning rod at the same time he was, and I said something about it. I said, I was just sitting here thinking I'm an idiot throwing this spinning rod in these trees, and I watched it happen to him. I actually got it on video, and I thought about leaving it in the video, but I didn't want to do that to him.
Special guest Justin Maples.
Yeah,
just for that part.
I didn't want him to have to relive it. Those fish hurt bad enough having to go through it once. You don't have to watch it again. But I just went up and down that bank a bunch of times, and I don't know, it was probably 10:30 or so. Kind of just got wore out on fishing right there, and decided to go across to where I had started to fish back in the creek during practice. I caught a little one almost immediately, and about 5 minutes later, I made a cast and got a backlash, actually, because casting that light worm and little weight. And I pulled it out. By the time I got it out, cranked up, my line was moving out towards deeper water. So I must have cast that one right on a bed or right on that fish's head. And that was a 16 and a half, which was the smallest fish I had by the end of the day.
Oh, yeah.
And the next like 2 or 3 hours were just a grind, just a little fish every once in a while. And I fished back into the creek a ways, but there was a lot of people back in there, and I wasn't trying to fish on top of anybody too much. So I turned around and came back out and fished I guess it'd be the west bank. In between that little pocket I was fishing in the bridge, which is got a little bit of deeper water, and it was clearer than everything else. And I started dragging my bait out a little bit further. And once it got out to about 10 feet deep, it seemed like I was starting to get bit again, which was a lot deeper than I had been fishing.
Mm-hmm.
I just kept doing that, and it was slow fishing. I couldn't get him to hit it on a spinning rod for some reason, which is a little easier, but the cast that I finally got the bite on, I timed it on my video, and it was right at a minute from the time I made the cast to the time I set the hook. So it was just painstaking, slow dragging along the bottom, and that was my last cull of the day. That was 18 and a quarter on that bang stick. So I thought I was right at 90 inches with that fish, but doing the math in my head was a little off. But that was the one that put me at 89 and a half. So
yeah,
I caught several more small ones, and nothing that was even close to helping me. I tried throwing a swim bait, and I switched back and forth between the beaver and the bang stick, dragging it different in that pocket and on that bank where I caught that 18 and a quarter. That was the last good one I got.
Nice. I'm assuming that, and I know you're not using at least last time we talked, I know you're not really dialed in on your electronics necessarily. You're not using your electronics to catch a lot of these fish. At least you hadn't been. Did electronics play any part in this event at all?
Well, I've upgraded since last time a little bit. I've got that Lowrance Elite 7 Ti now, so it's a lot better than whatever the other one I had, the like 15-year-old Lowrance I had on there that didn't work half the time. So now I use the side imaging a lot, but really the only thing that it helped me with was finding where bait was. So there was just a ton of bait and a ton of fish in that pocket that I was catching my fish out of. And I was trying to kind of focus on those areas that seemed to have more food, and that's where I was getting the better quality fish. It seemed like when I got away from where those shad were, I wasn't catching as many fish, and I never caught anything very big. But it was something about in between that, or around that bridge, and then a little ways where the creek bends around and goes to the east. Something there was really attracting those big shad. There was smaller shad when you got up in the creek, but the bass were smaller too, it seemed like. But something about that area was just really holding those big shad, and that's where those bigger bass seem to want to be.
Nice. I want to give a quick shout out to a couple of our viewers here. Organic, he was at Big Hill. Shout out to Derek. He's always watching and commenting. Appreciate that, and hopefully we'll see you at the next one, buddy. Lone Star Swim Bait, also known as Legal Dope, Edwin Chardon. He's been a guest on the show a couple times. I just hung out with him down in Texas. And as you can see, you probably recognize the logo here is a fellow swim baiter yourself, Swim Bait Universe.
I almost took the days off to go down there. I really thought hard about going. I know I should have, but
it was fun. You could have hung out with Edwin, and we had a good time, man. we I don't know, it was like, I think anybody was invited. I don't know. Edwin was like, "Hey, come with me." So I went with him, and we went to a big crawfish boil, and there's like all you could drink beer and all you could eat food. I mean, it just gave us mounds of crawfish, and they had alligator sausage and all this stuff, corn and potatoes, like the normal stuff there. But yeah, and we're playing like pool with Mike Buka and Matt Servant. It's just like kind of wild,
Yeah,
man. Like,
I
yeah,
saw some of those pictures. Yeah,
it was wild.
yeah, it looked
Just
like a
like
good time.
hanging out with all these guys that you only know from the internet. It just seemed like like I had to kind of remind myself that I wasn't walking around with like a VR attached to my head. It's like this is this
Yeah,
is this is real life. But
yeah,
that was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. Got to see a lot of those people put some names to some faces. But yeah, you would have got
yeah,
a kick out of it, and I'd imagine they're coming back next year. I mean, it was a big hit down there at Fork, so
yeah,
definitely
yeah.
go next year.
I thought just throw the kayak in the back of the truck and go down there and fish Fork for a while. That would have been cool too. I
Yeah,
know it's an extremely difficult lake, but it
I
seems
didn't.
like one of those ones that you gotta fish at least once.
Yeah, I'm wishing I did. I didn't fish it because some of our buddies were fishing this other lake closer to Edwin's house, and they were catching them, and basically leading up to me getting there, and then this cold front came through, kind of shut that bite down, and so it was really tough even at that lake, and we kind of thought that was the better odds over there.
Mhm.
Caught one fish. I couldn't catch a fish on a
Yeah,
swim bait. We had a bunch of followers and stuff, but we couldn't get any fish to commit on the big baits, and so finally I tossed out my trusty swim jig and put one in the boat, and then went back to the big bait stuff. But it was a good time. Yeah, you should definitely make it out to the next one. Um, Kansas Kayak Bass Fishing. I'm trying to remember who that is. Do you know right offhand?
I don't.
You'll have to remind me. I think he told me on the last episode, but I'm totally drawing a blank here. So, Kansas Kayak Bass Fishing is just telling you that that was a good cove. I'm assuming maybe he was over there, or maybe he's just trying to get some more intel. I don't know.
Yeah, there was a couple people that rolled through there later in the afternoon, but yeah, me and Justin had beat it up pretty bad at that point.
Wes Kinsey, he is the reigning Big Hill champ, I believe. The last Big Hill tournament we had out there with KK, I believe he won. So he's giving you some props. Said you kicked our butts. The lake was as low as he's ever seen it. And Wheat State Dude seems like a new name as well. Appreciate you tuning in. Clayton has definitely put the time in on the water. Yeah, that is for sure.
Yeah,
He caught 3 fish out of that pocket, he says. Kansas Kayak Bass Fishing caught 3 fish out of that pocket Thursday. It was loaded.
Yeah, it seemed like it had a lot of fish in it.
And for any of you, before we kind of get back into the conversation here tonight, we've got something up on the screen for those of you watching, those of you listening later on after the fact. Check out Blue Basser 86 on YouTube. If you want to see the recap video, this is going to be his footage from that day on the water. You're going to be able to see his fish catches and kind of how that whole day how all that went down. So if you guys want to check that out, plus a bunch of other content, he's even posted another video since then. You'll catch videos on the kayak, on the bass boat, maybe even some shore stuff. I'm not sure, but he's got quite a bit of stuff on there. If you're from Kansas, I think a lot of you guys will get a kick out of it. But honestly, the caliber of fish that he catches might confuse him for living in another state. He's catching public water Kansas fish, believe it or not. But yeah, so
I,
so things definitely.
I guess there's people that don't believe that, but
I told you that last time. I
yeah,
think the last time we had a podcast, the first time well, I don't know. I think I had seen your videos and stuff, right? But I
yeah,
had a guy ask me about, had you ever seen that blue bass for 86? And I was like, oh yeah, I've seen him. And I didn't know you, from Adam at the time. And he's like, yeah, like he's out there fishing them private lakes, something like that. But just couldn't believe it.
yeah,
But when you're catching that many, like 3 and 4 and 5 pounders, I mean, I guess I could see where that assumption would come from. But I get excited over a 2 or a 3 pounder. But anyways, okay, so yeah, you kind of went into it thinking it's going to be more of a pre-spawn. I would say that I would kind of agree with you. The week or two leading up to that event, our water temps up here, I'm not very far north, but water temps were a bit chillier up here. I was surprised when I went down to Big Hill and saw that, like the low 60s. That changed things up. You kind of adapted, and you just mainly to start out the day, we're kind of fishing on the bank.
yeah,
Kind of adapted throughout the day and kind of watch those bait fish, kind of where they're hanging out at and stuff like that. So that is something. If you guys are, not real electronic savvy, these things can really do you a lot of good, whether or not you have live scope, whether or not you have that forward facing sonar, even just being able to see those bait balls and stuff on your graph. They're gonna show up real well. You're gonna know exactly what you're looking at when you see that on your 2D or even on your down imaging. Just kind of looks like a big old blob on your screen. Is that kind of what you were seeing?
yeah. I was I was running side scan, so I was
Okay,
seeing the schools of bait fish coming through, and
nice.
whenever I was moving around, I was looking to see if areas had the schools of bait fish, and I was kind of looking for those areas that I thought they would spawn at that had the kind of deeper water close by, but we're set up with the good spawning areas that had some stumps, the mix of stumps and smaller rock with bigger rock, not just big rock. And um, there was definitely areas that they seemed to be preferring over other ones, but that one pocket, it had the nice big rocks, it had some stumps, it had a little bit of like clay mud stuff that they could uh, kind of clear out to make their beds on around the rocks and the stumps. And I did actually see one on a bed back in there right towards the end of the day, but at that point it might have helped me, but would have been pretty close, and I wasn't gonna waste a lot of time for a fish that might have been a half-inch upgrade.
Yeah, sure.
But that one really confirmed my suspicions, seeing that fish on a bed there at the end of the day.
Sure, yeah. Now, so kind of, I guess, leading up to the end of the event, and you're seeing that fish, I'm assuming that you're still pretty intent on upgrading. Like, did you think you had it in the bag at that point? Did you assume that you were going to see more 90-inch limits? I'm assuming you heard some chatter on the water that it had been kind of tough for a lot of other people. Like, what was your thought process going into the last, bit of the day?
I really didn't think I had it. I thought I needed to cull that last 16. I thought I probably needed another 18 or bigger fish to really put me into that low 90 range to have a shot. I had really bad service, so I could never see the leaderboard except for one point. I was able to submit 5, and I think that was on the KVN side. Once I tried to do the KKA, it wouldn't work, and that was 9:30 in the morning probably. So nothing you see at that point means anything.
Yeah.
So I really had no idea what anybody had. I know when I submitted those, I had 86 3/4, and I think the next person had 72 or something like that. So going off of that, I had a good morning. That's all I knew. But
Sure. And you don't ever know
that,
who's submitting and who's not either.
yeah, I know there's a lot of people that like to keep it interesting. Some that don't like to take the time out of their day to stop and submit fish.
Yep.
So you've always got that questioning whether or not there's somebody who hasn't submitted their fish yet. And I guess I was that person this time, since I couldn't submit until I was off the water.
Yeah.
And I know I don't know Big Hill very well, but I know it has quite a few big fish in it. So there's always that chance that somebody really got on them, and I don't know, where somebody might have gone to catch more big ones than up in that creek. The main lake didn't seem to really be producing anything of any size. So I thought that if somebody had caught a big bag, I probably would have ran into them, and I hadn't talked to anybody that had done very well, but there was a lot of people up in that creek. So
Yeah.
there was always a chance that I just hadn't talked to the person that had found them. And
yeah, it seemed like, if there was one or two guys back in the creek, maybe, like I wish I would have stayed back there. That's where I was. And
yeah,
I wasted probably close to 2 hours. I made a ridiculously long run all the way past the bridge and then went all the way back to the creek, and I wasted a ton of time. But I know Ian Curtis pulled out like an 18 and a 19 out of there, and but he didn't have his limit. I think he turned in 4 fish, so he was 1 fish short of probably contesting. I don't know. He was 1 fish short of being up there. In the probably top 5 or whatever, but he didn't have his 5 for the day. And then the biggest one I caught out of there was like 17. I probably lost one about that size, but yeah, I think you could have probably put together a winning bag in that creek back there. It was slow, but those quality fish were back there, but there was it's just too small of an area for 3 or 4 guys to fish back there. So yeah, I think you might be right. There could have been maybe a 90-inch limit up there or whatever, but yeah, that was the first time I'd ever been up there. That's kind of a cool some really cool scenery up there.
Yeah.
With like the
I
bluff rock
didn't make it to
banks
the
and stuff.
bridge. Yeah. That was where I stopped, was at the bluff rocks. I got up that far and just kind of came to the realization after I passed my 3rd person going into that creek that wasn't where I was going to fish.
Yeah.
So I turned around and came back out. But it was really neat scenery. I fished up in there, and I went into that little pond that's just barely connected to the lake that's off on the north side there. And caught a lot of catfish out there. I don't know what the deal was with that one, but it was loaded with channel cat.
During the tournament,
I caught 4 or 5. No, during pre-fishing.
Yeah.
I went back in there with a Ned rig, and it seemed like every time it touched bottom, a catfish would eat it. So maybe they were just really hungry, the ones that were in there. But
yeah. I think I might have figured out who Kansas Kayak Bass Fishing is. I think that's Daniel Maffei. That kind of looks like him now under that buff, if you can see his little icon there. He's asking me if my kayak's okay. Well, it's not my kayak. It was my wife's kayak, and I dumped it out of the back of the truck because I didn't strap it in. And I probably got 3 miles down the road before I realized it. And lucky me, he was not too far behind me, and he picked it up for me. and I was just laying on the road, just laying in the road. Yeah, I
That
know.
would have sucked.
Oh yeah, it would have been horrible.
I mean, it's bad enough just dumping it, but you're not getting that back.
Yeah. So I know you're the proud owner of a Hobie Passport, and
Yeah.
I would just say that thing's pretty damn durable. That's what it
That's good
was.
to know, because my oldest son's gonna be pedaling it around a little bit this summer, so it's gonna have to put up with the abuse of a 9-year-old. So
Yeah. Well, apparently a
I'm sure
33-year-old's gonna put a little bit more hurting on it when he doesn't remember to strap it in. Now, speaking of that extra kayak, maybe you want to talk about like why you ended up purchasing that, or some of the benefits of having that extra kayak with your new guide service that you're starting up.
Yeah, I've had quite a few people ask me about taking them fishing, and if I offer guide trips. So I saw when you posted that you had these on closeout down there. It seemed like a pretty good deal. They look like a nice little kayak, and I enjoy teaching people how to fish. So I decided to jump on the opportunity to pick one up, and I like taking my kids fishing too. So thought that would be something that they'd be able to take out and use pretty easily. And I've only had him out in it once so far, but he really enjoyed it. So yeah, I picked that up so I could start offering kayak guide trips and fishing lessons, whatever somebody wants, if they're trying to get into kayak fishing, or if they just want to go out and pedal around and try it out and see what it's like to fish out of a kayak. So it's an investment for somebody to go out and buy one if they haven't ever done it before. So pedaling around in one, they offer the demo days and stuff at different places. Pedaling around in one is quite a bit different than going out and actually fishing out of one. So I thought that'd be a way that somebody could pretty reasonably go out and try fishing out of one and see if they like it or not before they jump headfirst into actually owning one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
And then,
are you going to be offering this service to fellow competitors?
I don't have any problem taking somebody out and showing them how I don't catch fish.
all these KKA guys are going to be hitting you up. You're going to be booked out for the whole season. They're going to be trying to book you on tournament day just so you don't show up.
Yeah, I won't be doing them on tournament days. So I've already got all my vacation days put in, and my campsites booked for all the tournaments for the rest of the year. So I'm ready to go for those. But yeah, it's just on the weekends. I could probably do weeknights while it's warmer outside, as long as I get off work on time. But
yeah, it's light till after 8 o'clock tonight.
Yeah,
we're getting there.
And those are fun bites to go get on when you can get out on the evening time. And for the weekends, I do have access to 2 different private lakes. I don't fish them very often, but
see, I knew that guy was right.
Yeah. I have a lot on Sugar Valley Lake, and that also gets me on Hidden Valley Lake, which Sugar is a very clear lake, lots of rocks, lots of docks. It's a really fun lake to go out sight fish on, drop shot. It's a fun lake to throw big swim bait. So if you want to get into big swim bait fishing,
nice.
It's really good for that. And I've got extra swim bait rods. I've got 4 of those Flambeau roll up swim bait storage things full of different swim baits. It's nice because you've got those docks in the clear water. So You can go past those docks, fish your bait. You can see how the fish are reacting to it. You get a follow about every cast. A lot of them are 10 inches long, but you still get to see how the fish reacts to it.
Yeah.
But there are 7, 8, 9 pounders in there too, so you have the chance at something serious happening too.
Nice.
Hidden Valley has a lot more quality fish. It's got weeds, docks, a lot dirtier water. It also has a pretty good swim bait bite, but it's got it has a decent flipping bite. That's the lake last year I went out to once, and I caught up like a 5.5 and one a little over 6 out of the same brush pile, a few hours apart from each other on a jig. So it's got some real good quality fish out there. They're both small lakes, so for somebody who's just trying to get into it, it's not intimidating like trying to go out to a Melbourne or a Perry or big lake where you're gonna have to pedal around a lot. It's an easy little 100-acre lake. You can just go fish around and catch some fish. I mean, if they both got good crappie populations, bluegills, I'll fish for whatever. I don't have to fish for bass, and that's a fun way to just go out and fish and catch fish if that's what somebody wants to do.
Heck yeah. How did they get a hold of you? And do you have I think you have like a Facebook page or something they can visit?
I've got the Facebook page is Kayaking with Clayton, and then I mean, if they want to comment on my I've got a video on my YouTube channel. I don't know if I put my phone number on there or not, but it's bluebasser86 at Gmail if somebody wants to send an email with a question.
Yeah.
If they send a message to the Facebook page.
There it is, the come fishing with me video, probably, right?
Yeah.
I'm more than willing and able to.
Yeah. So if you want to get a hold of them, you can check them out there on Facebook. You can get a hold of them through YouTube. Yeah. There you go. There you can see that that's the 12-footer, ain't it?
Yep, it's the 12. I got the bigger one, so it'd be a little bit more comfortable for somebody just getting into it. It's nice and stable. I mean, my son's on 9, so he's obviously not a full-grown adult or anything in it, but it was nice and stable while he was in it.
Yeah, and I fished out of that 10.5 all day at Big Hill, and I've spent a little bit of time in it, but my concern was the seat, because I'm in that pro angler. But to be quite honest with you, I don't think at the end of the day, I don't think my back or, I think honestly, I was a little less fatigued than I maybe even would have been out of my pro angler. And I don't know if it has to do with because I always felt like having that seat higher up helped that. But yeah, I was like, man, I'm going to be stiff after 8 hours in this thing. And I really wasn't. I didn't stand up a whole lot, but I could stand up in the 10.5. So if you guys are going out with Clayton and, you're worried about it, I mean, it's a nice kayak. It's it's not the most expensive kayak that they make, but I was impressed after 8 hours. I'd never spent that much time in that kayak before, but I spent 8 entire hours in that thing, and I was impressed. And I normally fish out of a $5,000 kayak. So
and I've got my Old Town too. I've got no problem swapping with somebody if they want to try an Old Town out and see what it's like to fish out of that thing or how I have it set up. So either way, it doesn't really matter. However somebody wants to do it.
Heck yeah. Wheat State dude wants to know, what's your favorite overall bait to throw? If you could pick any bait in the world, one bait.
if I could just pick up my jig rod and fish that all day, I would be really happy. That would be a perfect day for me.
Hell yeah.
I like fishing a lot of different kind of baits, but if I can just pick up a jig rod and fish that all day with a heavy line and heavy rod, I know everybody probably expected me to say Ned rig, but no, if I could just
Nobody
fish
likes
a jig
fishing
all
a
day.
Ned rig.
I don't know. I like catching fish, so
There you go.
uh,
Apparently I don't, because I never throw a Ned rig.
it only catches little fish, so that's why nobody throws it. Yeah, I really enjoy jig. I like fishing a bladed jig a lot too. Those two baits, if I could go a day and just switch back and forth between them, that's a perfect day.
Do you have
But a jig for sure.
Do you have a go-to jig?
I tie my own, and I fish. I fish a lot of the finesse, like ball style jigs, and then a hidden eye flipping jig. It's a custom jig mold. That's it's kind of like the Terminator jig, if you know what the Terminator head looks like with the hidden eye on it. And I fished that a color I call grasshopper a lot. It's kind of a brown with a couple strands of orange, a couple of strands of chartreuse.
Okay, I see what you're talking about with the hidden eye jig. I had to look it up. There's several companies that make them.
Yeah, it's a color that's not a whole lot different than
Is that the one you're talking
like
about?
that's a brush jig. I have those also.
Oh, okay.
I'm in my boat right now, so
Nice.
it's the quietest place for me to sit and do this at. This one's actually it's the same color, but this one's a rubber skirted version. I like the flare. Which direction do I need to go here? But that's got the little bit of orange and a little bit of chartreuse. This one's all brown.
Mm-hmm.
We're pretty much all brown. I gotta. And I got a lot of them with living rubber on them. It's a little bit bigger one.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time with my phone lighting, but there we go. There's some of the chartreuse, and then there's some of the orange on the back side of it. That one's got a lot of the flat rubber on it. Gets some of the good flare out of the skirt. Seems to get some of the bigger fish to bite when I want to fish a big jig.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
And I've got I had one jig from Austin, Grumpy Fish.
Yep.
And I think it was like a blue craw color. It was brown with some strands of like a lighter blue in it. It's a really good looking jig. It was a what do you call I can't think of the
like an
head
arky
style.
head?
Yeah, an arky head. And I tied it on, and like my second cast, I caught one that was about 19 and a half.
Oh, nice.
And I sent him a picture because it ate it really good. It was a nice fish. And I think my next cast into the same tree, I got bit again. I set the hook and broke my line. So I got to make about 3 or 4 casts with it before I lost it.
Yeah, I'm big on the arky head. But here I found one that Austin makes, and it's a ball head. I know you mentioned that, and maybe has some colors that you would like a little bit. There's some brown in there, and there's some rubber and some blue. A lot of green pumpkin in it, but I actually just had this one sitting here. But I don't hardly ever throw a ball head. When do you like to throw those?
Well, I fish I do a finesse cut style.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this one is not.
So mine are like have the
Yep.
collar on them.
Yep.
Like that's just a little PB&J one. So just whenever I want a smaller profile, the fish are, a little more finicky, or if I think they're eating something smaller,
Yep.
I'll usually go with that. But
now, sorry, go ahead. I've got something after that.
Yeah, I do some really small ones sometimes that, especially on the lakes that have smallmouth in them, but they're good for largemouth too. These are little micro finesse jigs. It's just an 1/8 ounce.
Mm.
And it's just got a single weed guard strand. And I fish those on a spinning rod.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Those are a killer little jig. Yeah. They're especially about this time of year, it seems like they really work well, and I catch a lot of really nice quality fish with them too.
Okay.
But those are especially if you're fishing a spot and getting bit on a bigger bait, and you want to go back through and try to see if you can pick off a few more fish. It's a really good bait to do that with.
And so you weren't fishing a jig in the tournament much, right? Or at all?
I tried it. I couldn't get bit with it. Justin was fishing a jig in that same pocket. He was getting bit with it.
Okay.
But they weren't the same quality fish. So, but he was getting bit pretty good. I don't know what color he was throwing. I was trying to fish that grasshopper color, and then the plastics I was fishing were black and blue and Okeechobee cross. So maybe I was just fishing the wrong color jig. I didn't ever try switching to a black and blue jig, but I don't think I ever got bit once on a jig.
So when do you, and how do you decide? And I guess maybe you just let the fish tell you, right? But have you put a thought to it? When you're fishing that creature bait or that Texas rig versus when you're fishing the jig, I guess profile has a lot to do with that. Or
well, I was mainly going off the fact that I thought these were spawning fish, and I feel like they would hold on to a plastic a lot longer because those spawning fish, I said I had those fish that were biting the tail off of the spinnerbait trailer. So I kind of felt like they were short striking a bait anyways. So they might have a tendency to come up and just pick that jig up and move it. And just, you got the weed guard, and the bigger head is hard. And so that plastic, it's nice and soft and squishy when they pick it up. I was using that little tiny weight, so there wasn't hardly anything for them to feel that didn't feel like something that they could go ahead and suck up all the way.
That makes sense.
And that was my main reason I went to a soft plastic instead of a jig.
Yeah, not necessarily that they wouldn't bite it, but that you wouldn't get a good hook in them.
Yeah,
that makes sense. I like it.
I think they probably pick up and blow out a jig a lot more when they're spawning than they do a soft plastic.
Yeah.
Especially once they get pressured, because they've probably seen a lot of baits and they start to kind of put it together that something's not right when it comes through their bed. So they pick up and blow a bait out a lot more. But maybe something that's soft and kind of natural feeling might not be such a big deal to them, and they'll actually hold on to it.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got a picture here. We've got your YouTube up here, but I'm really using your picture, your background picture, whatever they call it there, kind of gives us a visual of your kayak setup, and it may not be exactly how you have it rigged out now, but if you want to maybe kind of go through some of the stuff you've done here lately, or some of your favorite mods that you've done since you've had the kayak, and maybe kind of go through some of that with us.
I haven't done a ton to it. I've got an anchor pulley system on it.
Mm-hmm.
Then in that picture, I've got my poor man's seat risers there on the back. That's a 2x4 that I split in half,
Okay,
and I
see
put that
that.
under the back of the seat.
Okay.
It fits perfectly in the channels of the seat, or where the seat's supposed to sit. But I actually bought the actual seat risers for it now, so I won't be rolling with the 2x4s anymore. I got the floating net. I've got put the extension on that with the PVC extension that you can find that on YouTube how to do pretty easy. That was
Nice.
pretty simple. The rolling toolbox for the tackle box in the back, that's a Hart rolling toolbox, and I've got Ozark Trail rod holders screwed to the side of it for my rod holders.
Mm-hmm.
It works really well. I just put a Navarre the stick anchor mount on the side of it. So I got that, and I got one of the push-in stick anchors, so I can use that when we go to the shallower lakes, that I could actually push into the bottom to hold me in place. So it seems like it would work a little cleaner than the using the anchor.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, I did. I just put the metal rudder on it instead of a plastic one, so it won't have the flex. It's supposed to help with steering in windy conditions, which, especially here lately, that's the only conditions we have is windy conditions.
Right.
I just got done installing that tonight.
Okay.
I'm pretty excited to try that out. So,
Yeah.
it's, doing like everybody else does, just slowly adding stuff to it and
Yeah.
getting it more and more set up. And as I fish out of it more, the stuff that I feel like I want and need on it, it's got the back risers on the seat, and I put the front risers, so I'll be able to sit up a little bit higher. Be a little easier to stand up and fish, and won't be sitting quite as low as I do right now. Not that it sits real low, but I'd like to sit up just a little bit higher. So
Yeah.
excited for trying that out too.
Yeah. A lot of those little upgrades, they can go a long way. Just comfort throughout the day, that can be a big deal, and just having things kind of laid out where you want them, where they're easily accessible. That's another big one as well.
Yeah,
and as you mentioned,
think,
anchoring around here and probably anywhere is a really big deal.
yeah, I anchor quite a bit. I don't know how much other people do, but I anchor quite a bit, not just when I'm fishing, but also when I catch a fish. A lot of times I'll drop my anchor to measure it and everything, because you blow around so fast. Sometimes it can be dangerous. Even this last weekend, it was so windy, I was dropping my anchor, and just to keep from getting out into the wind and waves too much while I was trying to measure fish. So
Yeah.
it's a pretty useful tool. It's easy to do, especially with that trolley system there. the anchor system, it works pretty well. So
Yeah.
it's not.
I think we might have lost him. Never know if it's me or if it's the person on the other end there, but it appears that he has frozen. See if we can get him back up here. Let me know, guys. Can you hear me? Maybe you can hear him and I'm the one that's frozen. I really don't know. Okay, yeah, he finally just dropped off there. So, yeah, kind of a cool little recap. We probably don't have a ton of other information to go over, but if he jumps back on here, we can obviously kind of pick up where we left off. But it is interesting to see, going into a tournament, having these preconceived notions. You kind of feel like what fish are doing in your neck of the woods or in your lake. I mean, it may be in the same area, maybe in the same region, but using that information that you have, using that time on the water that you have to your advantage, recognizing those signs, that's definitely going to be a big thing. And so he was able to kind of put those pieces of the puzzle together and shift his focus in order to be more successful out there in the water. He's back here, so we'll bring him back on. All right, we got you back.
Yeah, I think my Wi-Fi got messed up there, so
I always have a
lost service for a second.
Yeah, all good. Yeah, I always have like a ridiculously long, awkward pause before I ever try to, because sometimes we'll it's a weird deal where, I think that I'm losing you, but then I'm just interrupting you. And so I usually wait for a good minute or so before I say anything, but no, you were frozen. So, all right. Sorry. I kind of completely lost where we left off there. Oh, you were talking about your rigging and did you have anything else on that you wanted to talk about or finish that thought?
I think I was pretty much done there. I've got it set up pretty much like I like it right now. Most of what I would like to do now is just the upgrades, upgrading the stock parts with the kayak to some of the nicer upgrades that you can get for it. None of the big flashy things that you really notice, but stuff like the upgraded rudder bolts and replacing some of the plastic pieces with metal so they're a little more durable. You don't have to worry about them breaking.
Yeah. Well, as some of you guys that are watching the screen, viewing live, you can see we've got some Tourney X photos that were submitted the day of the tournament from Clayton here. And that was a small one, huh? 16 and a half? Yeah.
That was the small one.
Yeah, that's a good day. There you go. There's a big one, 19 and a half. And
that one fell off as soon as it went in the net, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We can see he's fishing some KVD beaver style baits, it looks like there. So if you guys looks like some sapphire blue, if you guys are looking to.
That was the Okeechobee craw. They're kind of they're blue on one side and green pumpkin on the other. But
as you can see, he had the lead by almost 7 inches there. So he kind of ran away with it. Had third place by 10 inches. So it was a tough day. It was a tough day for a lot of people. I didn't submit a limit, did I? No, I didn't. It was a tough day. I think you had a lot of people that 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, you had quite a few limits, but a lot of real small limits, and there was a lot of small fish being caught. Seemed like.
Yeah, a lot of them that I caught were 12, 13 inches.
Yeah, but you were able to figure out those big fish too, so that's what made it. That's what brought you to the top there. That's for sure. What is the rest of the season looking like for you? I mean, how does this change your approach? Or it probably doesn't change much, but going into the rest of the season, are you kind of AOI? Is that something that's on your mind? Is that a goal? What does that look like for the rest of the season?
Yeah, and I'm always going to try for AOI. That's something that I always want to try to strive for. I'm excited for most of the rest of the year. The El Dorado obviously coming up next. That last year was my first time fishing the lake. I had a good tournament. I had fun fishing it, so I'm looking forward to that one. I haven't fished Glen Elder since other than like an hour that I fished it last year when I was boat captain for the high school kids. I haven't fished it since I was probably 9, so
Wow.
I haven't fished it in forever. So I'm looking forward to fishing it. I've heard it's got some really big smallmouth in it too, so that would be fun. Obviously, Wilson can always be a good lake, and Perry's close to home, a lake that I know really well, and it's got big largemouth and smallmouth, so it could be fun. The Roadrunner, I think that could be a really interesting tournament. I'm kind of thinking about dragging my son along for that one, seeing if he wants to go fish with me.
Nice. Yeah.
Then Mine Wildlife. I've got some experience down there, not like some of the local guys, but I've fished it quite a few times, so that's always just a really unique experience fishing those lakes, those strip pits. And you pick the right one on the right day down there, you can catch 100 inches. So
Yeah.
There's not a lot of places that I feel like you really have a real good shot at that. But those pits down there, you definitely can. So that's always exciting, and you've got some of them down there that probably have state record class fish in them too. So you could catch a real giant while you're down there. So
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
That's always exciting. But I'm excited that there's a couple new ones on the schedule, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the rest of the season plays out. I'm hoping I can build on this. I definitely didn't plan on starting like this, especially not at Big Hill. I don't have much history, and it's not very good history what I do have with it. So that just sometimes you get lucky and a plan kind of comes together, and it definitely did out there. So I'm thankful that it did.
Heck yeah. Now Danny's just messing with me at this point. So he hasn't confirmed whether he's Kansas Kayak bass fishing or not. Maybe he's not, but here he is asking under his name, Daniel Maffei. Do you have any plans fishing any national level events this year?
Probably not this year. I would like to travel a little more and fish some bigger stuff eventually. Right now, with my kids being young, I don't really want to leave my wife at home for a real extended period of time. It's a lot of work when they're that, they're 6 and 9. They're both boys, so they have a tendency to be at each other pretty consistently, and it, it can wear on you after a couple of days of taking care of them. And I don't really feel like it's fair to go do what I want to do, several times a year for multiple days. So I'd like to, but I think I'm going to hold off until they get a little bit older and a little more self-sufficient. So it's not quite so much of an ask on her part for me to go do it.
Sure.
She already puts up with me going fishing a lot and is a very good sport about it. So I don't want to push it any more than I already do.
I hear that.
She is very good about it. She doesn't give me a hard time about me going fishing, and I know I go a lot. So
yeah, I see all those posts. I'd imagine you're probably catching fish every time, but yeah, it seems like every couple of days you got some nice fish on the board. So that's awesome. Well, yeah, I think we're looking forward to obviously the rest of the season for our own, sake, I guess. We're all looking forward to fishing these events, but I know a lot of guys are kind of looking forward to watching how you do in these events. And yeah, that was definitely a good one for you, especially after finding out that this was, not a this was not a lake that you're comfortable with, or that you have confidence in. It didn't sound like at all. So this was definitely a good way to get the year started, and winning one of those events that one of your maybe favorite lakes or something like that would be cool too. But I think it's a lot cooler to win one of those that you kind of felt like more of a was going to be more of a challenge. So that's definitely going to give you some confidence going in, and looking forward to see kind of how the rest of this season shakes out. For those of you guys that are interested in fishing this weekend, we've got a tournament with Kansas Bass Nation Kayak Anglers out at Bone Creek. This is going to be a big payout. It's a $100 entry fee. We're probably not going to have a ton of guys out there fishing this weekend, but that bigger buy-in is definitely going to help out. It's a $100 entry fee. So it's a, higher stakes deal, but we're going to have a couple more of those throughout the year as well. But this one at Bone Creek is on Saturday. So if you're interested in checking that out, go over to Facebook on Kansas Kayak Anglers, or sorry, not Kansas Kayak Anglers, Kansas Bass Nation Kayak Anglers, and you'll be able to see where to sign up for that. There's a post up on the KKA site as well for the Tourney X registration. So you guys can check that out. But otherwise, if you are fishing the Kansas Kayak Anglers, I think our next one's out at El Dorado. And that's coming up here in the next few weeks, even May 6th.
Yep, May 6th.
So looking forward to that one. Should see some spawning action still going on, I would imagine.
Yeah, we'll probably have some spawning fish and some post spawn fish both. But yeah, the good thing about the kayak tournaments is it doesn't really matter if they're post spawn. You're going by length. So a spawned out skinny fish that's 19 inches gives you the same as a fat 19 incher. So
yep, absolutely. All right. Well, just kind of our normal deal here. An hour goes by here pretty quickly. We get to talking about fishing. Um, I think we'll probably go ahead and sign off on here in just a minute. But did you have anything that you wanted to add? Maybe shout out your guide service for those people one more time that want to look into that, or if you have any sort of sponsorship, partnerships or anything that you want to mention, anything like that.
Yeah, it was kayaking with Clayton. If you want to check that out on Facebook, I said it's a pretty reasonable way to get into. If you want to take a trip somewhere here locally, any of my tricks that you want to see. You want to see how I fish a Ned rig? It's a great way to go out and see how I have a lot of people ask me whether they want to admit it or not that how I fish a Ned rig. So I'll take you out and show you how I do that. Whatever, if you, like I said, if you want to go fish a big swim bait, you want to learn how to do that a little bit, take you out and show you how to do that. Whatever, just somebody that just wants to get in and try out a kayak, do that. I've got my bait company also, the CNC Custom Baits. I do a lot of the jigs, the bladed jigs, Ned rig heads, shaky heads, weedless shaky heads, big spinner baits, swinging football heads, a whole bunch of different kind of lead head style stuff. I try to keep my stuff pretty affordable. It's not nearly as pretty as Austin's. I can't claim that at all. He makes some really nice looking stuff. I'd make my stuff functional, and I catch a lot of fish with them. But I've got that also. If anybody's looking for baits, they can get me at CNC Custom Baits on Facebook, or just send me a text or whatever. I can get them that way also. I don't have a website. Kind of helps me keep the prices down, and I'm not trying to do it professionally. I just really sell enough of them that I can afford to make my own baits for free. That's about it.
There you go. Heck
So,
yeah.
Yeah, that's it. I'm looking forward to the rest of the season and getting to see some of the guys. I still kind of, whether it seems like it or not, I kind of consider myself a newcomer to it still. I just started kayak fishing a couple years ago, so I still am trying to meet and learn some of the guys' names still. So yeah, it's nice now that I'm starting to recognize some of the faces and some of the names that I've seen several times. So starting to feel a little more like I'm with the group and everything. I'm not not trying
an
to just,
outsider.
yeah, not the boat guy just showing up and trying to fish out of a kayak. So that's been pretty nice. It's a really great group of people. I've enjoyed the kayak stuff a lot more than I did the boat stuff. It seems like everybody is so much more helpful, and there's so much less egos involved in the kayak stuff. I mean, everybody's competitive without being ridiculous about it. We all realize we're here to have, you want to win. You're still here to have fun. You're not here to just be a jerk about it. I don't want to say anything I shouldn't say, but I've ran into some just ridiculous stuff when I fish boat tournaments, and it really put a bad taste in my mouth doing that.
Yeah.
So I've really appreciated the hospitality I've had from the guys that I've met in this group, really making me feel welcome. And I can't really say enough about the people that run it too, just how well it's ran. It's been great. So
We're trying really
makes
hard.
it a lot more fun. I know. I used to do a little Thursday night jackpot tournament with a group of friends, and it's so much work. You try to make people happy, and you can't ever make everybody happy, and you end up just getting so stressed out. I ended up just stopping doing them because it was so much work trying to do it when you're just trying to make it fun for everybody.
Yeah. No, but we have a good group of guys. You guys don't make it hard. I don't think. I mean, you'll hear a couple little complaints here and there, but I don't think there's a whole lot of that here. Like you were saying, we've got a real good group of guys, and yeah, a lot of competition, a lot of sticks in the club. A lot of guys that could take the win at any moment. So yeah, you can't ever sleep on those guys, but they're not the guys that you got to worry about, the attitudes and the egos and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, I would have to say, Clayton, you are officially one of the guys now, and I think you've officially been adopted as a kayak angler, for sure.
My boat's pretty much just become storage for all my kayaks. I
really expensive
all my
storage.
Yeah, it's just got all my stuff sitting on it right now from Big Hill still, and whenever I need something to put into the kayak, I pull it out of the boat. And my bait order I got in today's laying out on the kayak, and my boxes from the add-ons for the kayak are laying on the front of the boat, and all the rods that I took to Big Hill are still laying on the deck of the boat. Just that's pretty much all it's become now. The only time it ever moves is whenever the family wants to go.
Yep. Hell yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of dealing with the same thing where I'm not taking that boat out very much. But, well, I want to thank you for coming on here. Try to take it a little bit easier on us on the next one at El Dorado. Try to give somebody else a chance to win. But I don't expect you to do that. So, yeah, definitely for those of you guys that are wanting to get into the kayak fishing tournament scene here in Kansas Kayak Anglers, awesome opportunity for you to get out there, compete with some really good anglers, win some decent money, and fish, in my opinion, all of the best bodies of water in the state. And we'll throw a couple new ones in here and there to kind of check them out and maybe see, just like with Glen Elder, that might be one that we revisit, depending on how this year goes. So looking forward to that one. But Clayton, I'm gonna go ahead and sign off for the night, and something tells me we'll probably have you back again.
I hope so. I'm gonna try.
So, all right, man. Well, you have yourself a good one, and we'll be seeing you here before too long on the water.
Sounds good.
All right, man. Have a good evening.
Yeah, you too. We'll talk to you later.
All right. See you. All right. There you guys have it. Clayton Westgate. For those of you that don't know, he is an absolute Kansas hammer, recent convert to kayak fishing. And as he mentioned, kind of a funny thing, but I've experienced it myself. You've got a bass boat, you've got access to it, you can take it out whenever you want it, and there's just something different about that kayak. And it's just and it's even odd, because Clayton mentioned tonight and even before we went live how he has been fishing in some very windy conditions, and he has chosen to take out the kayak. Sometimes it's easier to get away from the wind in the kayak. Sounds weird, but when you're launching the big boat, you're limited on where you can launch that from. So, you may have to run some pretty sketchy stuff to get to those places out of the wind when you're in the big boat. But a lot of the times you can go ahead and launch in those areas that are more protected from the wind in the kayak. And that's what I've seen. And that's why I've taken that kayak out here in like some of these colder, like I've told people in the past, like, yeah, I'm going to take the bass boat out more, in those colder conditions, just because I want to stay dry. And, but I've actually come to realize that I can find places that is more protected. And I can launch my kayak in those places where if I were to take the bass boat, sure, I can maybe get back there. Some places I can't, but I might be able to still get to those spots, but I'm going to have to run quite a ways in, 20, 30 mile an hour winds. And that's not fun. So kind of cool to see him doing, more kayak fishing and spending less time in that bass boat, but anyways, I do want to thank him for coming on. I want to thank all of you guys for showing up tonight and hanging out with us. We're looking forward to fishing with you guys. If you haven't ever fished with us, reach out to me, reach out to one of the guys in the club. Check out Kansas Kayak Anglers on Facebook and Kansas Bass Nation Kayak Anglers as well. Lots of opportunities here in the state to fish. And we'll be back. We'll be doing this again. And, we're definitely going to have Clayton on again because we didn't cover some of the stuff that I wanted to. There's just not enough time. Once you get to talking fishing, it just time escapes. So, guys, I do want to thank you for tuning in. If you're interested in fishing with us this weekend, check it out on Facebook, Kansas Bass Nation, Kayak Anglers, out there at Bone Creek. You can find that event on TourneyX as well. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Appreciate you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.